Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today. We have Addison Chavez and Jeff Chavez, former Ossining High School graduates. You guys would like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Detective Chavez, the Addison Police Department. Me llamo el Detective Chavez de la Policía de Ossining. Yo estudié en la Ossining High School y me gradué en el 2001. Estoy acá con mi hermano, el oficial Chávez.
Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Mi nombre es Oficial Chávez. Yo igual me gradué en el 2001 con mi hermano y inclusive con el profesor Zach Yankler, ¿no? Hace tiempo, ¿no? Hacía más de 20 años. Y yo acá soy un oficial acá en la Policía de Ossining y tengo 7 años acá en la policía.
Otra cosa que quiero decir, nosotros fuimos estudiantes con la señora Romero, ¿no es cierto? Y también igual con Zach Yankler.
Sí, yo me gradué en el año 2000. I graduated in the year 2000 here in
So, yo nací en Lima, Perú. Vine acá a la edad de 4 años. Cuando llegué acá al país, no fue fácil. So, when I was born in Lima, Peru, I came here at the age of 4. And everything wasn't easy. It was difficulty learning, obviously, because I didn't speak the language. I stayed back in first grade. Porque no supe el idioma, tenía que repetir el primer año. Y por eso yo y mi hermano Addison estuvimos en el mismo grado todas nuestras vidas, desde el primer grado hasta que terminé la high school. That's why you see Officer Chavez and I in the same grade. We both graduated in 2001 because I stayed back in first grade. A lot of people thought we were twins, but that wasn't the case. I'm a year older than him, even though he looks older than me. That's the case.
The truth be told is that he couldn't color in the lines in first grade, so you know.
Pero estamos acá para poder decirles sobre nuestras experiencias como inmigrantes que hemos llegado a este país y también a la misma vez nuestra experiencia como estudiantes en el Ossining High School y ahora como oficiales. Jay, you want to pick up on it?
Yeah, sure. So following that, you know, we, as Jeff had mentioned, we came to the country, you know, as little kids with, you know, with the American dream to move forward and to learn about school, learn about the culture. We came to Ossining in 1996 in 8th grade. We started off at AMD and we went through the Ossining High School, which, you know, at the time, you know, was a great experience for us. We also were in school with other family members. You know, we made a lot of friends, a lot of deep connections, and it's kind of what I feel was rooted me back into the village to work as a police officer here in the village of Ossining, to give back to the community, to learn a little bit more about, you know, the ins and outs of what it takes to become a police officer and help out other community members. You know. So, go ahead.
Entendemos que acá tenemos bastantes inmigrantes y muchos que recién han llegado a estas escuelas, ¿no? De Ossining. Y a veces el proceso de llegar acá, adaptarse a una nueva vida, un nuevo idioma, no es fácil. Por eso queremos compartir con ustedes que se puede hacer. Tienes que estudiar, trabajar duro y aprender el idioma y puedes lograr sus sueños que han llegado acá a este país. Como nosotros, yo logré mi sueño de ser oficial y ahora soy detective. Y eso es muy orgulloso para mí y mi familia. Y le deseo también eso para ustedes que han llegado a este país, han mucho sacrificio para llegar acá, hasta este punto, y para que dejen sus familias en Ecuador o posiblemente en otros países para estar acá, a seguir adelante, estudiar, aprender el idioma y adaptarse a la nueva cultura que están acá.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience here at OHS and how that kind of lent itself over to your careers today?
Okay, great. So, mi experiencia en la high school de Ossining, ¿no? Me encantó bastante. Obviamente en ese tiempo, en el 2000, en los 90s y 2001, hace tiempo, era bastante diferente. No, la escuela no era tan grande, teníamos diferentes programas, ¿no? Y a la vez en todo el aspecto, toda la comunidad era un poco diferente. pero nosotros no, obviamente vimos la oportunidad de poder estudiar, poder llegar a conocer más de lo que nosotros queríamos hacer en el futuro por medio de los profesores. ¿No? Los profesores más que nada siempre están ahí para ayudarlo a uno, a aconsejarlo, a guiarlo en lo que uno desea hacer mañana más tarde, sea ser profesor, policía, médico. Entonces, en cualquier experiencia que uno toma, no tiene que verlo de todos aspectos. En el caso mío, yo cuando estuve en el high school, no, yo al comienzo quería ser arquitecto, de me cambié a quizás ser en finance, y entonces la vida te lleva por diferentes caminos, ¿no? Y obviamente al final decidí seguir la carrera donde mis dos hermanos, inclusive tenemos otro hermano que él es detective en Briarcliff, ¿no? Ayudar a ser un policía acá en la comunidad y hacer algo diferente.
Yeah, to piggyback on like what my brother said, it was great, the experience here in Ossining High School for us. When we moved here from Sleepy Hollow, and we were excited we moved here because we had our cousins who were actually in the school system as well, and we enjoyed that. And the biggest connection with that was them, and then the experiences with our teachers was huge. Specifically, you know, we had some Spanish teachers that were fantastic. You know, we had Mr. Pasanante, Miss Morales, and Miss Stoiberg. And I think one of those classes I had Miss Romero was in my classes as well. So I remember having great memories in those times with those teachers. I'm sure there's a bunch, like Miss Amato, I think is still in the high school. She was a fantastic English teacher. So I think the biggest thing that piqued my interest in law enforcement for me was my class that I took with Mr. Rosenbaum. It was a forensics class. I was a senior actually in high school. And that's what piqued my interest in law enforcement. And I remember sitting outside, you know, after taking this class, it's like, you know, this is something I want to do. And I was a little nervous about it, policing, you hear how dangerous it is and all the things that, you know, to get there. But I decided, you know, this is what I want to do. So ultimately, after high school, I went to Iona College. I graduated with a degree in criminal justice. And from there, I decided to take the police exam and then easily transitioned into the police world.
How do you feel in regards to your career? How has that influenced your life, so on and so forth?
Yeah. Another thing I forgot, I get a shout out to my uncle, Scamarone. I have to give him a shout out as well. He was great impact when I was at the high school there. He was a great mentor for us, and not only as an uncle, but also as a coach and everything else. So he helped us get through the school systems as well. Señora Romeo, ¿se pregunta de nuevo una vez más?
Si quisieran hablar de su carrera,
Oh, sí.
Y la influencia en sus vidas que tiene.
Claro. Bueno, obviamente la carrera de ser policía es bastante interesante, pero a la vez requiere bastante de su horario, de sus esfuerzos físicos, mentales, y la verdad es que a veces cuando uno va en sus llamadas o toma sus casos, no es difícil a veces olvidar lo que uno ve, no olvidar lo que uno ya sabe, no, y obviamente uno tiene que saber cómo balancear la vida, lo que es la vida profesional, y dejar lo que uno, las experiencias buenas y lamentablemente las difíciles en el trabajo, para no llegar a la casa con esos pensamientos, esas cosas que realmente uno ya sabe. Obviamente el balance de la familia es muy importante, la familia siempre viene primero, y la familia es el apoyo que uno necesita para poder hacer ese trabajo, ¿no? Porque el trabajo requiere bastante y hoy en día las cosas han cambiado bastante. Y yo siempre agradezco que tengo dos hermanos que también son oficiales, tengo mis padres, mi familia, que realmente entendemos lo que es ser un oficial. Y a veces el horario a veces el horario te cuesta bastante, pero es un trabajo que realmente lo puedes hacer con bastante honor y sabes que has hecho un cambio en la vida de otra persona.
Yeah. Yes, and I think also being an immigrant, being a Spanish-speaking officer, it also helps in this community. You get to understand the struggles that a lot of immigrants have gone through, whether it's like learning how to drive, not having a driver's license. You know, I remember when I was a young kid taking the Beeline bus, public transportation a lot. So you get to understand their plights and their struggles. So I think that we can relate to them as officers when they're in the situation and we're called to the scene to investigate whatever happened. We could put ourselves in their shoes and understand maybe there's a lot of cultural differences that maybe officers who are not from those countries understand. So that's been a huge benefit of us as Spanish-speaking officers and from a different culture that we're able to bring to this community and assist.
So we have a question here from Mr. Yonkler. What were your goals in joining the police department, and how have you been supported in achieving those goals?
Well, let's see. What are my goals at the OPD? Of course, one of my goals is always to be a great officer, to be able to, make a difference in someone's life. Be able to not only impact a victim, but also at the end time impact somebody that I've had to deal with in a negative way, so that their experience can be positive the next time around. At the OPD, I'm part of the Marine unit, which is our boat unit. So we take the boat on the Hudson, which I enjoy a lot. I'm a boat guy, so I love the water. So, I'm on that unit, so we'll take the boat out there in, the nicer weather to do some patrol of the Hudson. I'm also recently part of the bicycle unit. So we'll ride the bicycles up and down the lower area of Ossining to, just do community policing, some active patrolling and so forth. So, those are two things that I really enjoy here. Of course, the sky's the limit. As long as my abilities and the opportunities are there, I hope to be able to take on more while I'm here.
Cuando yo me gradué de la universidad, tuve la meta de ir a trabajar con la FBI. Esa fue mi meta. Y en este proceso tomé el examen de la policía. Y cuando llegué a la policía de Ossining, me encantó el trabajo, los oficiales. Entonces de ahí cambiaron mis pensamientos acerca del trabajo. Ya no decidí seguir esa carrera como un agente de la FBI. Y decidí quedarme acá con la policía de Ossining y tratar de trabajar duro acá en la policía para llegar a una meta como detective o investigador. Y en 2016 me promovieron a este puesto. Tengo como 15 años como oficial en total. Ahora como detective, mi trabajo es investigar los casos donde de repente no hay un sospechoso, no pueden identificar a alguien que cometió el crimen. El trabajo de mi hermano es cuando él llega, toma el reporte para ver qué pasó. Mi trabajo es de ahí investigar ese caso para ver quién hizo el crimen o quién hizo el asalto o lo que sea. Pero acá en Ossining, en la policía de Ossining, como mi hermano dijo, yo soy parte también del equipo de las bicicletas. También soy parte del equipo SWAT que tenemos aquí en Ossining. Es muy importante mantener esos equipos acá, por si acaso que algo pase en esas escuelas, en otros lugares, para poder asistir. Mi trabajo primariamente es investigaciones y con eso he podido trabajar con agentes del FBI y otras agencias para cerrar casos, investigar casos que afectan no solamente a Ossining, sino en otras partes del condado de Westchester.
¿Y qué le aconsejaría a nuestros estudiantes que quisieran seguir la carrera de policía? O sea, ¿cuáles pasos, preparaciones, estudios?
Bueno, el examen de la policía para los estudiantes, tienes que tener un high school diploma, se requiere tener high school diploma. Pero también es importante que puedan leer. You have to really know how to read. There's a lot of reading comprehension exams. Part of the exam, there's a lot of reading comprehension. So if you want to also take a promotional exam, you have to do a lot of reading comprehension. So make sure you guys are reading. It's very important. It'll really serve you well in your careers, even in law enforcement. El examen de la policía, como les decía, estaba avisando, es el próximo mes de mayo, pero el último día para registrarse fue el mes pasado. El examen viene cada 4 años, entonces no pierdan esa oportunidad cuando estén listos para tomar el examen. Es el examen del condado de Westchester. Para prepararse tienen que prepararse físicamente, pero también tienen que también estar preparados en la lectura para poder contestar varias preguntas que se le presenten en el examen. So just to follow up, I want to say that the test to become a police officer comes every 4 years. The test is be given next month, and the last opportunity to register for the exam was last month. So that has passed now, but the test is given every 4 years. So just try not to miss the opportunity next time you want to partake in that. Joey, anything follow?
Yeah, and the actual process, el proceso para entrar, para ser policía, es un proceso medio largo, no tienes que tomar varios exámenes y después no tienes que esperar hasta los resultados. Tienes que tomar examen físico, examen mental, y a veces el proceso dura, ponle 3 a 6 meses, y a veces uno pierde las esperanzas de quizás no entrar. Pero siempre hay fe, ¿no? A mí también, yo creo que me tomó un par de años por fin hasta que ya me llamaron y pude entrar, ¿no? Siempre hay la oportunidad, si es que tomas el examen de Westchester, que quizás puedes entrar en Austin, en Sleepy Hollow, en Peace Hill. Hay varios lugares donde quizás necesitan más oficiales. Y si el comienzo no es el departamento que uno elige, bueno, hay otras oportunidades y no se deben perder tampoco.
¿Se requiere un bachillerato o no?
No, no se requiere. Se requiere solamente high school diploma.
Ok, tenemos algunas preguntas aquí. Law enforcement can be very stressful. Does the OPD put an emphasis on self-care to manage stress?
That's a good question.
It's very
We have those resources available, but I think that sometimes I would say that officers are sometimes hardened by what they experience, and they're able to cope in other different ways, but there are resources available to deal with that. Should we need it? You know, obviously you're put in situations where we see things that the average person doesn't see, and we as humans shouldn't be seeing certain things. And sometimes that can be a little traumatizing. I have 2 young kids. You know, I sometimes investigate crimes that affect children, and I have to try to remove that part of me a little bit when I go home. It's tough though, because you gotta try to shut it off. But even though you've seen, you know, sometimes you can't unseen what you just saw, you know. So that is tough. There are resources available out there. I think that it's important for officers to recognize that when they do need that help, because we're vulnerable just like everyone else is, you know.
I think one of the biggest things to take sometimes away, living in the community, growing up in the community, being a part of the community, working in the community. I know I've ran into people at Stop and Shop, Seatown, local supermarkets here and there, where you see them now in a better light, and that is very rewarding. You know what I mean? Where you run into them and they'll recognize you first before you recognize them, and then they'll come back and they'll tell you how the story came full circle, and then that is usually a very rewarding part of your job. You know what I mean? To know that, what the time you ran into them, although you may have not met them under the right circumstances, now they're in a better spot. They're more than happy usually to just share their story, share the end result with you. And it's 9 out of 10 times it's a positive one. So, that's always very helpful to know,
We have another question here. Are you guys basically CSI?
Well,
my brother might be CSI. I'm the uniform that shows up. I'm driving the blue and white.
Yeah, I'm the one collecting the evidence, photographing things, dusting for fingerprints, dusting for DNA. That's my job. So I'm the guy that comes after to come and process the scene, process the crime scene. And my brother's there, the initiating officer, just securing the scene until I get there. Like he's always done.
We have here Addison is the first responder.
Yes.
Yeah. I would be the first responder. I would first, assess the situation, see what needs to get done, and based on the call, that requires a detective to come in, I would then radio for Jeff to come in and assist us, and then he would pretty much be responsible for the scene.
We have a comment from Mr. Yonkler here. I know you're kind of Facebook famous. Can I show a short clip about the work success you have had in making the police department more understanding and more accessible to our Spanish-speaking community?
Yeah, so I'll do this both languages. So yeah, so we saw that there was a need to really connect with the Spanish-speaking community here in Ossining. And so we realized that maybe they weren't versed in our laws, in our policies, or maybe just certain procedures. So we're like, we got to find a better way to reach out to them. And this year in January, we launched a Spanish-speaking Facebook page only directed at the Spanish-speaking community in Ossining, just to keep them updated on what's going on with the police. Este año, en enero, este año en enero, iniciamos una página de Facebook, se llama Policía de Ossining, para asistir y para tratar de comunicarnos con los inmigrantes y la comunidad que habla español acá en Ossining. Y esa página la iniciamos en enero y ya tenemos como 2,300 followers o personas que siguen la página también. Ha sido un buen beneficio y el profesor Yankler le va a mostrar un reportaje que hicieron acerca de esa página en enero.
Yeah.
Before jumping to the video clip, I know Mrs. Love had a question. It says, is there a certain minimum age that you have to be to take the exam?
Cool.
There is no minimum age. You just have to have a high school diploma or be in the process of getting that high school diploma.
And how many years or months is training before receiving your badge?
Well, the police academy is 20 weeks. You know, so once you get hired and you go through the process, you get sworn in, you go to the Westchester County Police Academy, so it's 20 weeks of academy training. You know, it's in Valhalla, and then you're then put in with your department, at which point you would be in field training. You'd be with another officer who would, you know, train you side by side, and that's usually for a period of about 3 months. And then you've got your probationary period, and before you're pretty much, you know, on the road.
Do either of you ever wish you had followed a different career?
Me personally, no. This is what I wanted to do. Sometimes I wish I would have traveled the seas as a FBI agent, traveled the world as an FBI agent, but it's tough to have any family life with a career like that. I have a wife, 2 kids, and I reside here in Ossining, so my home life is very stable here, and I'm tied to Ossining. So to have that life, it would be more of a single travel the world type of career, and I don't think I was prepared for that. So no, I love what I'm doing. I'm happy to be here with you guys sharing my experience.
You know, I mean, I ultimately was in business management and then in sales. So this was probably my end result, you know, which I actually am very happy with. You know, I actually got started a little later than Jeff did. Jeff became a cop, I think, when he was 22, I believe.
Yeah, I was 23 when I got right.
Yeah, I was a little bit older. I was 31 when I got sworn in. So I was in a different mindset. You know, I was in a different point in my life, and it was a great choice. And I'm happy I made the decision to finally become a cop.
Algunas otras preguntas posiblemente tendrán.
How challenging was the police academy?
Well, I went through the academy in 2015. It's a great experience. It's a lot of mental, you know, physical, and of course it's educational. More importantly, you know what I mean. They teach you how to become a cop, the laws, the tactics, you know, pretty much the rules of life. You know, but you do have to have a certain level of physical training. And they put you through physical training every day or every other day. You know, it's kind of like a, you know, somewhat of a toned down military type academy, you know. And in the beginning, it's different. So, you know, you got to get used to the way of doing things. You know what I mean? More of a paramilitary organization, and you very quickly assimilate to it, and it becomes a good experience. You know, you learn to work within your guidelines, you know, and your rules and regs and what you're allowed, not allowed to do. And it's good. It's good discipline, but it's a very good program.
As someone who arrived to this country at a young age, do you think this experience influenced either your career, your life, or how has it influenced?
Let's see. It has, like I said before, I think it really has appreciated the opportunities that I was given in this country. Sometimes I say to myself, would I have been as successful in Peru? I know, like, I have a lot of cousins down there who may not be in the best situations because of the lack of opportunities that are in a country like Peru. So I think that I'm thankful for the opportunities I've had here. It has influenced me as an officer. It obviously has. It wasn't easy coming here to this country and struggling, learning the language and being held back. But I think I use those adversities to help me succeed and work hard at where I wanted to achieve, you know. I think that really just dedicated me to schooling, and I know schooling was a big thing here when I came to this country, and you had to read and apply yourself. And I think that I used that not only in high school but in college, and then as policing as to where I am now.
We have here, is it scary to be a police officer?
Is it scary to be a police officer? I would say, you know what, once before you become a police officer, you know, you have one way of thinking. Once you go through the training at the academy and you're training with your, you know, your fellow coworkers, you know, your mindset completely changes, and your abilities to assess situations also becomes different because you have training and you know how to deal with certain things differently. But there are moments where, yeah, you walk into a situation and, you know, you're a little bit more on edge. You know, you've got a little bit more because the situation calls for you to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. Ultimately, I wouldn't say it's scary. I say, you know, the job itself prepares you to take on situations, and you'll know how to handle them when the time comes. You know, so I'd say it wouldn't be too scary. I'm more proud of being able to follow through and assess things differently.
To follow up on that, sí, mi mamá es madre de 3 hijos que son oficiales. Y se pone muy nerviosa al comienzo cuando de repente cuando yo entré a la policía, pero después cuando vio cómo era para mí, pues estuvo un poquito más tranquila, pero al final de cuentas nuestros padres se preocupan mucho por nosotros. Obviamente lo que está pasando a veces en las noticias no ven que es un trabajo, puede ser peligroso, no digo que no. Hemos estado en unas situaciones a veces, te pones nervioso como cualquier persona, pero tienes que también entender que es un trabajo y nos dan el entrenamiento para poder enfrentar esas situaciones y para poder llegar a la casa seguramente, pero sí es un poco nervioso, pero a la misma vez también es una carrera que es linda y muchos beneficios.
Básicamente contestó la pregunta de Cintia acerca de cómo se sienten sus padres, sobre su carrera y sobre su seguridad. Así que básicamente contestó la pregunta. Aquí tenemos también otra pregunta. Do you feel police officers are misrepresented in the media, politics, etc.?
It's a good question. It's a very good question.
I think that
you know, go ahead, John.
You know, I think that a lot was seen on there. I think that a lot of it is being brought to light based on the body cameras and a lot of video that we have out there, right? Something that technology we didn't have many years ago in policing. So I think that with that, I think everyone's being held accountable. And I mean, everyone is, as I'm saying, is the police officer. And I think we should. We are held to a higher standard. We've taken an oath to serve this country and serve their community. So I think that it's important that we are held to that standard at all costs. Obviously, a lot of things have happened throughout this country. And obviously, we're hoping that certain things like that never happen here in our community. And I think a lot of part of that is training and making sure the officers are aware of what they're doing to prevent mistakes or injustices from happening. So, but I think that the media, I would say, I mean, they could look at both sides of it, but I think it ultimately, their job is to hold us accountable. So.
Addison, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, you know, as I'm thinking about Jeff's response in the question, I mean, a lot can be said, and, you know, every situation is different, you know. Unfortunately, the media is there to inform people, but, you know, there are certain channels that will also misinform people, you know, about certain situations. So I guess my recommendation to that would be to take a step back for a second. You know what I mean? Just look at everything, look at the big picture. You know, a lot of police officers are put in positions that are difficult, and unfortunately, you know, there are some officers that, you know, make decisions that ultimately have a bigger effect on the community, on the country, and on themselves and their family. You know, I don't think, you know, truthfully, I don't think anyone is wakes up. You know, I don't think a police officer wakes up with the intention to go out there and make a mistake. But unfortunately, some actions have their consequences. And as my brother did say, it's our job to make sure that we make that the community feels safe. And at the same time, we are held to a higher standard. We are held to a higher circumstance. So, that is something that we have to be accountable for. And we have to be aware of everything, of, not only ourselves, but the community, as well as, the end result of a call or the end result of a case. So it is important, and I do understand where, the question does come from. Given that is what is going on, in today's climate, it's a very fair and valid question.
Okay, we have a question here. Have you experienced anything that once might have changed your mindset about being a police officer or detective?
I have to say that, before I became a police officer, I would have, family gatherings, family dinners, and I'd hear Jeff tell stories and calls and cases he went on. And I was always very intrigued and interested in them. And then, a week later, I'd follow up, what happened with, so-and-so, that, did you guys get that guy or whatever? And then, when our younger brother, JP, he became a police officer, he started in Mount Vernon. So his call volume was a lot more than, I'd say, Jeff's call volume. So then it'd be, it's another interesting call or another interesting case, and then that'll, both hearing things like that, and then you start to think about things and you start to picture yourself. And in my case, it's kind of what pushed me into, okay, what, I think this is the right call. I'd like to pursue it as well. And, that's kind of what changed my mind, is to hear these great stories, you know what I mean? And the not so great stories are always good opportunities to learn from and to see things differently. So, I really, I have to thank both of them for being able to give me the insight and, being able to allow me to see it from a different way right away.
Para mí, no. Desde que ese momento cuando tomé esa clase en la high school con Mr. Rosenbaum, Mr. Room, ese cuando decidí entrar a esa carrera de policía. Y para mí siempre eso ha sido mi meta. Y por eso estoy encantado de estar en esta carrera. Pero les quiero contar una experiencia mía que tuve cuando yo era oficial, pero no estuve trabajando como oficial, pero tuve una experiencia de discriminación como oficial, no como inmigrante, digo. Tengo familia que vive en Port Chester y estuvimos en la casa de mi tío haciendo una parrillada y teníamos que ir a una tienda a comprar comida y cerveza. Fui con un hermano y un tío y fuimos a una tienda que es localizada en Rye, que queda junto a Port Chester. Y cuando entramos a la tienda, había un señor de edad, ¿no? Que al momento que nos miró, no sé si ustedes entienden que como es Rye a comparación a Port Chester. Rye es un pueblo donde hay bastante dinero y hay pocos hispanos. Y cuando entramos a esta tienda, ese señor realmente comenzó a decirnos unas lisuras en inglés, que quiere decir, váyanse de acá, váyanse a su país. Y yo en ese tiempo tenía como 1 o 2 años como oficial. No estaba trabajando, pero honestamente me sorprendí porque me quedé como un poco pálido, no supe qué hacer en esa situación. Y yo siendo oficial ya 2 años, no tenía la confianza en ese momento para poder lidiar con esa situación. Solamente no quise enfrentarla, dije a mis tíos, mi hermano, ven, vamos de acá nomás, vamos a ignorarlo, porque era un señor de edad y se notaba que era un poco, no sé, era loco o lo que sea, pero se notaba, sabíamos que él tenía problemas con los hispanos y nos dijo eso y nos seguía en la tienda. Decidimos evitarlo, salir de la tienda para evitar cualquier conflicto. Eso es una experiencia que ni reporté a mis supervisores acá en la policía, pero una experiencia que ahora como oficial de como 15 años en la carrera, y yo creo que en ese tiempo hubiese sido algo diferente, pero en esos tiempos tenía como 1 o 2 años en la policía y no supe cómo lidiar en esa situación aunque casi había vivido acá en este país toda mi vida y tenía 2 años como oficial. Entonces, quiero que ustedes entiendan que esas situaciones, si ustedes han enfrentado situaciones que no son fáciles, aunque cuando estén en esas situaciones para enfrentarlas o hablar o defenderse, porque a veces uno se queda sorprendido que alguien le está diciendo eso, sabiendo que ustedes son estudiantes acá, viven acá, hablan el idioma, pero de repente cómo lucen puede ser, es la parte donde alguien puede tener otra diferente opinión de ustedes. Entonces, les sugiero que estén preparados para esas situaciones, porque cuando yo pasé por esa situación, no supe qué hacer. Entonces, me arrepiento un poquito de no poder saber cómo lidiar con esa situación.
Bueno, lamentablemente ya se está terminando el periodo, pero gracias a ustedes por estar aquí, compartir con nosotros y compartir sus experiencias con nuestros estudiantes. Estamos muy agradecidos.
Great.
Un placer. Muchas gracias por tenernos acá.
¿Ya se pasó la hora tan rápido?
Todo rapidísimo, ¿no? Así es. Thank you both so much for taking the time today to share your amazing stories. You are an inspiration for our current students.
Hey guys, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Awesome. Muchas gracias.